those who aren't here and paying attention are just going to miss out.
Started about a year ago. That's not mine, that's mine.
Oh. All right, everybody ready? Have we all had a cup of tea? Pee? Refreshed? Chance to get up and walk away? Some have.
Yes.
Okay, so next session we're going to talk about principles and elements of design. Again, we will probably run over because I've got way more slides here than we are probably going to have time for, because I just didn't know when to stop. Okay, some of the stuff we've discussed briefly in the first session, and again it's a case of there's going to be a lot more information that I'm not covering than what I can cover, because we have only got an hour to cover, principles and elements of design. If you're really going to get into it, it can take weeks, if not months, to actually study. In my case, I've probably been absorbing it for most of my life as an artist. I highly, highly recommend that you go out there and Google principles and elements of design. There's lots of websites out there for artists who talk about it. There is no definitive set of rules. They are principles and elements. Some people will use slightly different terminology than others. Don't get confused. The sites that I've found most effective for application to how we use it in theming and event styling is actually the florist sites, because they deal far more in three-dimensional. A lot of your art sites will talk about the principles and elements of design in relation to trying to create a 2D object and give it 3D aspects. So like you're working on paper and trying to give it depth and all the rest of it. But I find the floral sites with the principles and elements design far more useful in that respect. One of the first things, if I can find me mouse, here we go. First thing I want to touch on in this one here, and I think one of the key things which I'm probably going to say several times during this next session, is the power of observation. It is the power of self-analysis. We are exposed to these principles and elements in a lot of different ways through our life. You walk past a shop window and you stop and you look. Why did you stop? What was it that attracted your eye? Analyse your reaction to it. Maybe it said sale, that might be enough. Great, fine, that works for that. Why is that effective? Analyse what you're looking at. We often walk through our lives with blinkers on. We see things, but we don't see them. Do you know what I mean? We look at them and we assume we know what it is, but we don't look at them. We skim. We visually skim our environment all the time. So stop skimming. Stop, and instead of smelling the roses, look at it. Look at how those petals are formed. Take a sniff along the way, that's good too. But look, really look, and judge and assess your own emotional response to what you're looking at. Why did your eye go there? What was it that attracted you? Today, in this session, we're going to talk about some of the principles and elements, and you'll be able to use some of the terminologies. Oh gee, it might have been the rhythm of it, or the line, or the form, So look and analyse your own responses. You are your own teacher. I've been doing it for years. This piece of information was given to me by an extremely talented visual merchandiser, and by taking that on, she transformed what I was able to do. Now, so the principles of design, as I said, there's a lot more, but we're going to deal with the basics of them. We're going to deal with the ones that I use the most often. We're going to deal with balance, symmetrical or asymmetrical. Rhythm is linear rhythm, the flow, the way of the individual line, the repetition or movement or visual beat that a piece will have. Piece of important information. The eye likes to move. Revolutionary! No, it really does. It doesn't like static. It likes to be drawn through. And this is where graphic designers and all this, these artists particularly use this knowledge to construct and compose their picture in such a way that you will start here and there will be pictures along the way that will draw you to where they want you to go. They manipulate your eye by how they place, what colour they use, and the emphasis they put on it. So they're manipulating your eye. Okay, good designers know how to do this really well. Emphasis, point of focus, or interruption. Positive and negative space. Unity, coherence, consistency of form and colour are also powerful tools. Inconsistency can be a real coherence. In event styling, that's simple as making sure that your colour theme actually works. And it isn't something jarring unless you want it to be jarring. Everything has its purpose. Proportion is one of my favourite ones to use in events. Proportion. Relative size and scale, relationship between the elements. Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit more into each one. We're going to start in sequence. We're going to look at balance. Symmetrical and asymmetrical. Do we know what that is? Who can tell me what symmetrical is?
Same pattern all the way through.
Same, okay. And asymmetrical? I'm going to use a few floristry examples here because I think that they actually explain it quite well. Here you have a symmetrical design. You've got a central focus here, but your elements are roughly placed in the same way, so you've got symmetry. Okay? You've got symmetry in form, you've got symmetry in placement. This is asymmetrical. You've got different visual waves in the middle, but you've got a difference, and this is your rhythm in there as well. In event styling, that's symmetrical. It unfortunately has a nasty big banner in the middle of it, but that could be called your focal point. It's a fabulous photo, don't like the banner. But that's a symmetrical.
So what would you have done better there if you didn't have the banner there?
Nothing, just leave it. Beautiful texture and light. Why clutter it? This is asymmetrical. This is not yet lit, by the way, so that's why it looks a bit funny. Now, one thing I have learnt, and gentlemen, please be kind, when dealing with clients, I find women, my female clients, really love asymmetrical. The gentlemen, it does their head in. They always want it to be balanced on, why is it not balanced? Both sides should be the same. And it is an interesting trait that I have noticed over the years that I've worked. If I'm working with a gentleman client, I usually will do a symmetrical stage design. If I'm working with ladies, asymmetrical is great. They love it. Asymmetrical. You've got different visual weights happening over there. There is no symmetry to this, but it is still focusing. It is leading you down to here, once those lights are on particularly. Symmetrical. Like that. Comes in a box. It's Lycra.
You could wear it.
In this case, there's actually no pipe and base. You can do it with pipe and base. In this case, I've zip tied it to the top, zip tied it to the stage, and I've got an acrylic rod through that pocket just to stretch it. And then you throw your lights on it. It's white Lycra. Love white Lycra. Now we've added a bit of asymmetrical to this by flinging the lights on it. So lighting is something we also play with, and we'll talk about it as we go through. It's a very powerful tool in theming. Rhythm, the linear line, the flow of the individual line, repetition, movement or visual beat. And again, we're going to go with some floral examples. Rhythm, the flow of the line. The line with boom, ba-doom, boom, ba-doom. Visual beat. It's the way the line flows through. Now, the next one's an interesting one too. Where's its visual line, do you think? Can anybody tell me? Okay, so what's it doing?
One shorter than the other one.
Yeah. So its visual line is pretty much up and down focal point. But then it springs out into this, and then it comes back and goes off there. Now, does this particular arrangement look comfortable in that corner? Analyse it for a moment. What do you think? When you look at that, where does your eye want to go? Where is your eye heading for?
The other long flower.
It's heading that way? It's heading that way. Okay.
Blank.
Now, note how you're looking at it this way, okay, on this side of the paper. Now look at it there.
It's more attractive there, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Does anybody know why?
You look left to right.
There is that part, yes, there is that part, but this particular arrangement, you've got a strong down line, you've got your focal point. Your eye will then follow this, and then it'll sprawling out, because these little fairy little light lines, your eye will follow them. And if you put text in there, people will look at that and go, bing.
Mm.
That's a hint you can use in your slides too. So look at the shape of what you use and analyse your own response to it. Where's your eye going to? Where's that line taking you? You can use that to emphasise text or to draw people to look at things. As I said before, these rules can be used to manipulate your eye and where you look. Unbalanced. Now see, this is a lovely arrangement. Can anybody suggest to me what might be wrong with it?
It's the leaves,
Hmm?
the long leaves.
No, it's an asymmetrical design, but one thing that leaps out to me here on this one is, let's do to this side here, sorry, these, it's too much space. Now if you took these, just imagine in your mental eye, you've got a little Photoshop going on in your head, and you're going to take these orange flowers and you're going to bring them down a notch. So you're going to bring them to here and to here. Would that look better? Yeah. So without thinking about it, you think, well, that's nice, but not quite there. Where's the balance wrong there? Your visual weight, your dark, heavy things sticking up high, if you took those and put them down here and moved that up there, you can visually see your visual weight. You've got visual weight happening down here, and then you've got these big spoilings outside there. So if you bring them down so that there's unity to it, it creates a better balance, and visually it becomes more appealing. This is why I love working with floristry for these examples, because it's so easy to manipulate, and it's easier to understand, I think. Emphasis. This is another very powerful one in theming. It is called the art of distraction. Here you have an ugly concrete block room. Now, admittedly, I don't have my lights on at this time. As you can see, we're still in setup stage, and I didn't get shots of that one with the lights on. But you've got an ugly concrete room. What's the first thing you see when you now look at that picture, though? Do you see the concrete room?
I see a kangaroo.
You see a kangaroo. So your eye is immediately drawn to these objects, and trust me, once the lights are on, even more so, and you don't actually see the structure behind it anymore. When you're theming, it's a really, really good way of attracting them to where you want them to look, so you don't have to look at the things that you don't want them to see. With this room, there's plenty of people think that they have to theme the whole room and put stuff all around the walls and cover everything. No, you don't. You actually don't. What you need to do is you need to create an area of interest that the eye will be drawn to. You can do that using props, you can use backdrops, you can use balloons, and you use light. That's why I always incorporate light in theming. Always. Because it draws the light, helps to focus. And then once their eye is focusing on these elements, they don't see the rest. Remember what I said, our eye skins? We don't pay attention to half of what we look at. This is directing them to your stage is usually the main focal point for a reason. There might be other areas that you might want to focus on, but this is where you create your focal point of interest, and it distracts them from seeing the rest. Where is that event? Can anybody tell me what that event looks like?
Sexpo.
No, it's not Sexpo. It's a car park. Does it look like a car park?
Yeah, you
Look, here.
Stripes.
Yeah. It's a car park. But with air tube and lycra and lighting and furniture, we have now turned it into a nightclub. Because we've got all these other things happening, we have distracted them away from the fact that it's an ugly, grubby little car park, and it has turned into something else. Unity, the coherence. I had a bit of trouble finding if I just really express this one. Coherence, consistency of form, of colour. Consistency of form. Consistency of form.
Repetition. In other words.
Repetition. And unity in colour. Same colours. So there's unity. And unity, I think I've got some other slides further on about unity, I'm pretty sure I do. A lot of these elements actually will, elements and principles of design, so you'll find several of them all lumped into one. So you can talk about one, but you can turn that slide and talk about another as well. Okay? Proportion, my favourite. My absolute favourite. It is really fun to play with proportion. I love this piece of sculpture. I mean, if you take that away, you'd think that's just a woman lying in bed. Until you put a person next to them and realise that, my God, it's a really big sculpture. It is one of the things they must frequently make a mistake in filming, particularly in the new production industry. He's this tall, as are we all, roughly that tall. You've got your little cutouts in different sizes. Okay. Now you take that, and this is like from a prop place. You go and you see these pictures. You think, oh, we're going to put palm trees. Simple, we've got to be a budget. We're going to use cut-out palm trees in our event. Okay. And this tall and relative to a person. Now we're going to go to this venue. How effective do you think they're going to be? You see people do it all the time. They get a palm tree this tall and they stick it in a 6-metre venue. It's like a pimple on a pumpkin. You know, it is. It's like a pimple on a pumpkin. You've got to consider the size of the room that you're working in. It is a key element. You have got to consider the size, the proportion that you're working in. There's my husband. Now, without him being there, how tall would you think that is? It's hard to tell, really, though, isn't it? Without him being there, you know, it could be this tall, or it could be, it's actually, as you can see, a good 5-6 metres tall. The impact of doing things that large, and again, that's one of the reasons why I love working with balloons, because little bag, big effect, and you can create oversized things. You'll find a lot of props in the theming world are oversized, because you're working in proportion to big spaces as well as small ones. 6-metre drape line to there. Now if I put in that little palm tree that we showed you in the cutout, it would have been there. Would that have been any use?
No.
Would you have been better off just saving your money? Yeah. But you come in with an alternative option that has the proportion that you need to fit the room. However, this is not going to work in that little white room with the pillars and that low ceiling, or in this room. It won't fit. That's where your little cutout will work perfectly. Centerpiece sizes. Again, remember the lady I was telling you about with her Rio theme, her masquerade theme? She came and she went off and she ordered centerpieces. And she said, oh, Melissa, I found these beautiful centerpieces. And she showed me a picture of that. Okay. You do realise that your wine glasses are taller than your centerpiece? She hadn't worked out that this, at 18 centimetres, I think it was not even, I think it was 11 centimetres, is only this big. And again, proportional to her table, that is about that tall compared to the one she ended up using. It would have looked silly. It would have been like taking a water glass and putting it in and calling it a centerpiece. But the picture looks great. But you've got to look at the size. You've got to consider your size. So don't just look at the image and say, this is a wonderful image, I really like this style. Read the specifications on it. How big is it? A centerpiece should really be no less than 30 centimetres. Sometimes they're less, But on average, you know, you want something about that big-ish, give or take, depending on its shape, form and colour and what it's doing. But about that big-ish. About the size of a dinner plate thereabouts. Okay, so you've got that, it is proportional to the rest, although it is a simple one. You can see it here clearly. It is still taller than your wine glasses. Elements of design. Colour theory. We've all seen one of these. The colour wheel. Get a colour wheel, make it your friend. They're wonderful. I know, Jeffrey, maybe not for you. But for the rest of us, get a colour wheel, go to the art supply, make it your friend. Okay? You got your, basically on your colour wheel, you have your primary colours. Does anybody know what they are? What are your
Red, green, yellow, pink.
Red, green, yellow, pink.
Yellow, blue, and red.
Yellow, blue and red, thank you. Green is a secondary colour.
What?
Green is a secondary colour.
Is it one of the rainbow colours?
No, rainbow. I didn't say rainbow, I said primary.
But is it rainbow colours primary colour?
No. So red, yellow and blue. Your secondary colours are your yellow and red combined to make an orange. Your blue and yellow combined to make a green. Blue and red, purple. So that is secondary. So there's your primary, there's your secondary, and there's your intermediate. I can never say that word, and that'll,
Analogous.
thank you.
Yeah.
Stand up and say that loudly for me.
Analogous, yeah.
Thank you. Analogous is colours that are touching one another. So they sit next to each other on the colour wheel. Okay? Complementary. Funnily enough, that term I've always thought was a misnomer because they're not actually complementary. They are opposite each other on the colour wheel. So in this case, they've gone purple and orange, or you can go red and green, purple and yellow. So where it's secondary, primary or intermediate, doesn't matter, but if it is opposite on the colour wheel, it is a complementary colour. They are sometimes referred to as contrasting colours.
So are there colours that you should never go with, even
Oh
though
no,
you might think?
contrasting or complementary colours can be very powerful, but they are very powerful. They can be, they are opposite, so they are very strong colours
So
together.
use them moderately.
Yeah, use them with some caution.
Yeah.
They can be very effective, but they are very strong. And then you've got the split complementary, and that's like a softer version of that. So you'll have two shades at one end and one at the other, and that's kind of like a softer version of that. Hue, tint and shade, that's your hue, that's your basic colour. Add white, add grey. In a nutshell. So that's a basic colour wheel going on there. So when you're looking at your colour schemes, if you know your colour wheel, it helps you to work out where you should go. You know? I mean, rather than trying to guess, go from knowledge. We're going to look at some colour schemes in action now. Playing with your food again. So here we have a warm colour palette. We've gone from yellow through to chocolate. Okay, chocolate's not necessarily on the colour wheel, but chocolate is a warm, kind of like a warm version of black.
It's only warm because it's nice to
Warm chocolate. Hot chocolate fudge. Okay, so you've got, you know, your oranges through to reds and yellows. So you've got, what have you got here, colour scheme wise?
Analogous colours.
Thank you. Analogous colour scheme. Here's an image where you've got beautiful colour harmony. It's very neutral, but everything makes a very elegant, cohesive whole. Okay? You've got your soft pinks will blend in with the other colours very nicely. And you've got the same thing here. You've got a table set up here. She's gone for blues. She's complemented it with the right shade of blue. Be very, very careful out there when you're matching your colours. If you want it to look good, make sure they're the same. Particularly, as I said before, a lot of venues will provide you with the napkins and they'll offer you coloured napkins. But if they're not the right shade, stick to neutral, because you can really wreck a room by it in the wrong colour. E.g., what's wrong with this picture?
Too many shades of red.
You've got a burgundy.
Different shade.
You've got a burgundy. You've got a warm red.
Silver.
You've got gold edge on there, and you've got silver sashes, but you've got, so it's a hodgepodge.
Look, a
Yes,
person with colour blindness did that room.
Sorry?
Very much flashing.
Yeah. They look as if, to me this looks as if they've tried to match these things, but they've missed. That's what it looks like. They've tried to match it, but they missed.
Do you know what somebody who's colour blind?
Oh, Jeffrey, you're exempt from this particular section, okay? But either match it or move on, go for a neutral. If the red of your sash doesn't match the red of the napkin that they're supplying, go for the white napkin, go with the black napkin. Don't go with a mismatched one, because it'll ruin what you're
Where
doing.
they've got the silver sashes and they've got the gold trimmings, they should have had the gold sashes or something.
Yes.
Just to,
Now, if they'd done a gold sash and they got rid of these, that would have looked lovely.
yeah.
Another thing I really don't like about this picture's, I mean, it's a pretty sad attempt. If you're going to do a bow, make it a perky. Make it foof it. Foof it. Don't forget to foof. Foof is an industry technical term, thank you all. Just like fufulala. You know what I mean? If I say fufulala, you immediately get a picture. What is fufulala? Christine, tell me, what is fufulala? When I say that word to you, what do you see? Wendy? Fufulala.
All fluffed
We're
up.
talking theming, so you're going to do a fufulala theme.
All fluffed up.
That's right. It's all foofy. It's fluffy. It's fufulala. Technical terms. Industry jargon. Shape. Implied or defined boundaries. Now, we've already come across some shapes before. We've got the basic simple shapes. When you've got your round, your ovals, your squares, your rectangles, and your triangles. So we're familiar with those. But here we start seeing them actually being used in what we're doing. So when we're talking shape, we're talking the outline of it. So it is the shape. So you play with shape, you play with scale. Texture is another one that I love. Now, back with the other slide I show you with the stage with the symmetrical and asymmetrical. The symmetrical stage with those big drops, that's visual texture. If you had a look at that, in fact, you want me to go back to it?
No, I remember.
No, all right, we mention it again. If you looked at it, the texture of that product was very touch me. Actually, what it is, because they're mine, is go to Bunnings, you go to their garden area, and you go find the big rolls of the twig and bamboo stuff that you can stick on fences and around things like that. Yeah, 3 of those wired together, hung from this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Gee, that's clever.
Bunnings is wonderful. It's my
That's
favourite
clever.
store. I don't care what they call the product in there. I don't look at the name. I look at the shape. I look at the form. I don't care what its intended purpose was.
Look how you can use
I
it.
look how I can use it. I do. So, they might have that shade up there for the gardens. Nuh-uh, not in my life. Not in my world. I use all sorts of things and for way, way different reasons. Sometimes the manufacturers, I think, would be a bit shocked. But there you go. But yeah, Bunnings. Look at the products they have there and how you can use them. Hardware is fantastic. Fabric, lycras. So play with the texture. We talked earlier about satin, the visual texture, that shiny opulence. Velvet's got a different texture, also opulent. Organza, like an organza sash versus a satin sash, the feeling of texture and the thing, how it changes. If you're doing something on a table and you wanted to make it look interesting, instead of adding a silky, satiny runner, add fibre. Use some of the bamboo mats they used to make sushi. Add texture. Space, both positive and negative. We talked about it earlier in the other one with the orange roses. That was negative space where it didn't need to be. It broke the unity of that piece. Okay, it interrupted. Working with photographs. So we're going to move on a little bit now. because as I said, I've got a lot to cover.